Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a close look at Aptos, ticker symbol APT.
Right.
It's one of those newer Layer-1 blockchains getting quite a bit of buzz, and we know some of you listening are probably digging into it, maybe doing your own research on new tech or, crypto opportunities.
It's definitely on people's radar.
So our goal here, our mission for this dive, is really to pull out the key stuff about Aptos. What is it? How does it work technically? What are people saying about it? But importantly, without drowning everyone in super technical jargon.
Yeah, keep it accessible but informative.
Exactly. And we've got a pretty interesting mix of sources today. There's a Reddit discussion, real-world takes, then expert analysis from places like CryptoRank, Velvetech Consensus.
And the official stuff too, right?
Yeah.
From Aptos Labs.
Yep. Got the white paper details, ecosystem overview from them directly. So we should get a good range of views from, individual investors to the technical deep end.
Sounds like a solid plan.
Okay, let's dive in then. Let's unpack this. What exactly is Aptos, fundamentally?
Okay, so in simple terms, Aptos is a Layer-1 blockchain, foundational layer. And it uses a proof-of-stake system to keep things secure.
Proof of stake. Okay. Standard enough there.
Right. But what's really interesting is the origin story. It was founded by Mo Shaikh and Avery Chang.
Those names, they ring a bell. Meta, Facebook.
Exactly. They were key players at Meta working on the DM blockchain project. Remember DM?
Ah, yeah, the project that sort of fizzled out.
Pretty much. But the point is there's serious experience behind Aptos. These guys know blockchain tech. The mainnet, the actual live network, launched in October 2022.
Okay, so still fairly young in the grand scheme of things.
Definitely. And a really unique thing is the programming language it uses. It's called Move.
Move. Okay, haven't heard as much about that one.
It's based on Rust, which developers tend to like. And Move was also developed back at Meta, specifically for DM.
Ah, so the language came from DM too.
Correct. The whole idea behind Move is developer friendliness, but also critically, it's optimized for writing really secure smart contracts, trying to avoid some pitfalls seen elsewhere.
Former Meta engineers, a custom language built for security. That's definitely an interesting foundation. Okay, let's talk performance. Speed, efficiency, always key for layer ones. What are Aptos's technical capabilities?
Well, this is where you see some big headline numbers. Theoretically, Aptos claims it can handle up to 150,000 transactions per second, which is huge.
150,000 TPS. Wow. How?
Comes down to something called parallel execution. Basically, instead of processing transactions one by one in a line, it can handle many of them simultaneously.
Okay, processing in parallel makes sense for speed, but you said theoretically.
Exactly. That's the crucial word. We need to separate the lab numbers from the real-world usage. As of late October 2023, the actual observed TPS was hovering around 12.
12? That's quite a difference from 150,000.
It is, although to be fair, in the month before that measurement, they did see a peak of almost 6,000 TPS.
Okay, so it can ramp up significantly under load, it seems, just maybe not sustained 150K yet.
Precisely. The potential seems to be there, but maybe the current network usage doesn't consistently demand those peak speeds. Still, by that same time, late October 23, they'd processed over 311 million transactions total.
That's a fair volume. And who's running the network? Validators.
Yep, the proof-of-stake validators. At that point, there were 113 active validators securing the network.
Okay, good overview of the tech specs. Significant theoretical speed, lower current practical speed, but potential shown. Got it. Now let's get into the token, APT. The lifeblood, right? What do the tokenomics look like?
Right, the APT token. So again, using our late October 2023 snapshot, the circulating supply of the tokens actually out there being traded was about 246.7 million.
Okay. And the total, is there a max supply?
There is. The total supply is capped around 1.06 billion APT. So back then, only about 23.2% of all possible tokens were actually circulating.
Just under a quarter. Interesting. And price, market cap back then?
The price was hovering around $6.37. That gave it a market cap of roughly $1.57 billion. Put it around rank hashtag 33 among all cryptos at the time.
Okay. And the fully diluted value, if all tokens were out?
That was much higher, naturally, around $6.76 billion. Shows you the potential impact of future unlocks.
Definitely. What about staking, earning rewards?
Yeah, you could stake APT. The yield back then was around 6.4% annually, and apparently that rate had been increased recently before that snapshot.
Okay, 6.4% yield. Now, the initial allocation, this is always a big point of interest. Who got the tokens at the start?
This is where it gets really important. The largest chunk, 51%, was allocated to the community.
Okay, sounds good on the surface.
Then you had 19% for the core contributors, the team, 16.5% for the Aptos Foundation, and the remaining 13.5% went to investors, the VCs.
Community, team, foundation, investors. Got it. But the key is often when they get these tokens, right? The vesting schedules.
Exactly. And they're different for each group. For the community and the foundation, the unlocks happen gradually over a very long time, 10 years.
10 years. Okay, that's quite spread out. What about the team and investors?
They have shorter timelines, but with cliffs. The core contributors have a 2-year cliff.
Meaning nothing for 2 years.
Correct. No tokens released for the first 2 years. Then, after that cliff, their tokens unlock linearly, bit by bit, over the next 35 months.
Okay, 2-year lockup, then gradual release. And the investors?
Similar structure, but faster. They have a 1-year cliff.
1 year.
Followed by the same linear unlock over the following 35 months.
Right, a cliff, just so everyone's clear, that initial lockup period before anything starts getting released. And these unlocks, do they happen regularly?
Yes, very regularly. They occur on the 12th of every single month.
Ah, okay. A predictable date.
Predictable, yes. And the amount unlocking changed over time, too. For the first 6 months after launch, it was 2.34% of the total supply unlocking each month.
That sounds like quite a bit initially.
It was. Then it stepped down. For the next 30 months, it became 1.06% of the total supply unlocking monthly.
Okay, still significant.
And finally, after that, the rate drops again to 0.43% per month until the full 120-month 10-year period is over for those long-term schedules.
Okay, so a tapering unlock schedule. Now, connecting this to that Reddit discussion, they were looking ahead to 2025, right? What did these schedules imply for unlocks around them?
Yeah, that was a key point in the thread. Based on these schedules, by April 2025, the projection was that almost half the total supply, roughly 49.96%, would be unlocked.
Wow, from 23% in late 23 to nearly 50% by April 25. That's a big jump.
It is. And looking further out, by December 2025, the estimate was about 58.44% unlocked.
Over half the total supply circulating by the end of 2025. That's a substantial increase in available tokens relatively quickly.
Absolutely.
So what are the potential implications, especially thinking about that Reddit user's perspective looking towards 2025?
Well, this is where market dynamics come in. The Reddit analysis took that late 2023 price and applied it to the projected unlocked supply by end of 2025.
Just as a thought experiment, kind of?
It's exactly a rough calculation. It suggested the market cap could theoretically hit around $3.95 billion. And based on rankings back then, that might place Aptos around the hashtag 20 spot.
If the price held steady with all those new tokens hitting the market.
That's the massive if. And this is crucial. It's just theory. Markets fluctuate wildly. A huge increase in circulating supply could put downward pressure on the price, unless demand keeps pace or grows even faster.
Right, supply and demand.
And the Reddit discussion really honed in on this. There were concerns voiced that the vesting schedules for the investors and the core team, well, their cliffs ended and unlocks ramped up, potentially aligning with when some predicted a broader market upturn in 2025.
So the worry was they might sell into strength.
That was the concern, that early stakeholders might be incentivized to sell their newly unlocked tokens around a market peak, potentially impacting later retail investors who bought in. The phrase dumping was used.
Okay, that definitely colors the picture. So this Reddit thread gives us a sense of community sentiment, at least back then. What was the overall vibe?
It was definitely mixed. You saw clear appreciation for the tech, for the Move language, the potential there.
So respecting the engineering side.
Yes. But big reservations about the tokenomics, the allocation percentages, those vesting schedules. People were scrutinizing them.
The 13.5% to investors, 19% to the core team.
Right. The feeling from some was that these schedules heavily favored the early insiders, and the timing, potentially lining up with bull market conditions, made people nervous about sell-offs.
The dumping concern again.
Exactly. Someone even pointed to FTX Ventures being an early backer as a red flag, though obviously FTX collapsed later, which adds another layer entirely.
Yeah, that's a complicated factor now.
So the advice from at least one commenter was basically, be cautious about holding Aptos long-term. Maybe good for short-term plays, but watch out beyond that. There was definite skepticism about the heavy VC involvement overall.
Okay, so cautious optimism on tech, but real concerns on token distribution and VC influence. That's really valuable context. Now let's shift from the tokenomics and sentiment. What's actually being built on Aptos? What's the usage, the ecosystem like?
Looking back at that late October 23 data again, the network was seeing decent activity. Daily user transactions were around 380,000.
Okay. Not bad.
Monthly active accounts were about 1.5 million, with daily active accounts around 52,000.
So people are using it daily.
Seems so. And interestingly, about 25,000 new accounts were being created each day. That suggests user growth was ongoing.
And developers, are people deploying contracts?
Yeah, on the dev side, roughly 34 new smart contracts were going live daily, deployed by about 10 unique developers or teams each day.
Okay. And the overall ecosystem, what kinds of projects?
The reports back then mentioned around 90 projects live, spread across the usual crypto categories: DeFi, NFTs, gaming, wallets.
Any specific examples?
Sure. Things like the Aptos Explorer, your typical block explorer, the Petra wallet, which is a native Aptos wallet, and even big established DeFi players like PancakeSwap had deployed a version on Aptos.
PancakeSwap. Okay. So attracting some known names, that points to a growing ecosystem. Now, we mentioned the VCs. Can you recap the big backers and the kind of funding they raised? It sounds substantial.
It really was. Aptos Labs attracted some top-tier VCs. We're talking Andreessen Horowitz, A16Z, Tiger Global, Multicoin Capital, FTX Ventures, as mentioned, Jump Crypto, Binance Labs. Big names.
Wow, that's a heavyweight list. How much do they pull in?
The total raise across different rounds was around $350 million.
$350 million. That's significant seed and early stage funding.
Absolutely. Reports suggest a $200 million seed round, followed by a $150 million Series A. Plus, Binance Labs and Foresight Ventures didn't just invest, they formed strategic partnerships too.
So deep pockets and strategic alignment. Okay, now Aptos often gets compared to Solana, sometimes called a Solana killer. Why that comparison, and what are the key differences?
Yeah, that Solana killer tag comes up a lot. It's mainly because Aptos, like Solana, is really focused on high scalability, high throughput, and security. Areas where Solana made its name, but also faced some challenges like outages.
Right, Solana's growing pains. So how does Aptos differ technically?
A big one is the language. Aptos uses Move, designed for safety and parallel processing, as we said. Solana primarily uses Rust and C++ Symbian.
Okay, different tools for the job. What about speed and fees?
Speed-wise, Aptos has that higher theoretical TPS target we talked about, 150K versus Solana's theoretical max, which is also high, but generally considered lower than Aptos' claim. Fees are another point. Aptos aims for more stable, predictable fees. Solana's fees, while generally low, can spike quite a bit when the network gets really busy.
Predictability is definitely appealing.
For sure. And then there's history and ecosystem size. Solana's been around longer, has a much larger, more established ecosystem of apps and users right now, but it has had those notable network outages.
Reliability versus maturity, maybe.
Kind of. And the consensus mechanism is slightly different too. Both are proof of stake, but Aptos uses a specific type called Byzantine Fault Tolerant Consensus, or BFT.
BFT, what's the significance of that?
It's known for being particularly robust. It's designed to keep the network working correctly and securely, even if a certain number of validators are offline, slow, or even acting maliciously. Think of it as extra resilience against failures or bad actors.
Okay, so a focus on resilience baked into the consensus. Interesting comparison. Now, our sources also fast forward us a bit. We have info on recent developments as of April 2025. What's been happening more recently with Aptos?
Yeah, quite a bit seems to have happened between late 23 and spring 25. Firstly, those token unlocks we discussed. Aptos was actually leading the pack in terms of the dollar value of tokens unlocked in early April 2025. Over $300 billion worth of APT hit the market then.
$300 million unlocked. Did that impact things?
Well, interestingly, despite that large unlock, reports claim that the total value locked, TVL, in the Aptos ecosystem had actually doubled year over year.
Doubled TVL even with unlocks. That suggests growing usage within their DeFi space.
It certainly points that way. More value being locked in protocols. And speaking of protocols, Athena Labs integrated their synthetic dollar, USDD, onto Aptos.
Athena's USD, that's been a big topic itself. Bringing it to Aptos is significant.
Definitely adds liquidity and potential activity. Also something called PASIT protocol launched, focused on on-chain credit. So more DeFi building blocks.
Okay, ecosystem growth continued. Anything on the tech side? Scalability.
Yes. There was a mention around February 2025 of something called shardinges, unlocking 1 million TPS potential.
Shardinges.
Like sharding? Presumably related to sharding, yeah. Sharding is a common technique to split blockchain workload for more capacity. This shardinges likely refers to a specific Aptos implementation or milestone they hit, aiming for that massive 1 million TPS goal. A huge jump if realized.
1 million TPS. Okay, still pushing the scalability boundaries.
Yeah.
What about expansion partnerships?
Definitely active there too. Back in October 2024, Aptos Labs acquired a company called Hashpalette Inc. Seems it was a move to expand into the Japanese market specifically. And in November 24, they led a $10 million funding round for KGN, which is a decentralized gaming network.
So Japan expansion and investment in gaming?
Right. Plus, they got involved in Hong Kong's official EHKD pilot program, exploring central bank digital currency uses.
Interesting government-level exploration.
And big tech partnerships, too. Deals announced with Microsoft and Google Cloud, focused on things like AI integration, data services, using their cloud infrastructure.
Microsoft and Google, that's major validation.
It is. And even on the entertainment side, a collaboration with NBC Universal on Web3 experiences, plus an equity investment in Chingari, a social app, earlier in 2023.
Wow. Okay. So a real flurry of activity, tech upgrades, DeFi growth, gaming investments, major partnerships, international expansion. They've clearly been busy.
Yeah. The period from late 23 to spring 25 seems to have been one of significant building and branching out for Aptos.
It really paints a picture of active development. Let's maybe zoom back in on the core technology for a moment, the Move language and the overall architecture. What makes them stand out?
Well, Move, as we said, is built for safety. It has this concept of resources, digital assets that have scarcity built in. You can't accidentally copy them or delete them. They have to be explicitly moved. This helps prevent bugs like double spending.
So safety is inherent in the language design itself.
Largely, yes. And it also includes something called the Move Prover. This is a tool for formal verification.
Formal verification. Sounds complex?
It is, but it's powerful. It allows developers to mathematically prove that their smart contract code behaves exactly as intended, that it meets certain safety properties. It's about increasing confidence in the code's security before it even deploys.
Okay, proving correctness. That's a big deal for avoiding hacks and exploits.
Huge. And the overall transaction processing is designed to be modular. Think of it like an assembly line. Different stages, spreading the transaction, ordering it, executing it, the parallel part, storing the result, certifying it, they all happen concurrently.
The pipeline approach for efficiency?
Exactly. The architecture also supports flexible key management, which is good for user security options. And transparency, you can see clearly what a transaction will do before you sign it.
See before you sign, that's definitely user-friendly. Any future scaling plans mentioned? Beyond shardinges?
They're actively experimenting with different types of sharding, internal validator sharding, homogeneous state, sharding ways to potentially break up the workload even more in the future to handle even greater scale.
So scalability is an ongoing research and development focus. Makes sense. And the consensus mechanism, the proof of stake part, anything unique there?
It's proof of stake, as we covered. They emphasize rapid validator rotation changing, who validates blocks frequently, and they track validator reputation on-chain.
Reputation tracking. So good behavior is rewarded, bad behavior potentially punished.
That's the idea. It incentivizes reliable performance and contributes to network health and decentralization.
Okay. And the nodes, the computers running the network.
You have full nodes, which store the whole history, and light nodes, which are much less resource intensive. Interestingly, full nodes can choose to prune old history to save space.
Pruning helps with the ever-growing size of blockchains.
It does. And they also have customizable state synchronization. Basically, network participants can choose how much data they want to download and process, depending on their needs and resources.
Adaptable and efficient network design seems to be the theme. Okay, let's pull back again to the community angle. We heard the Reddit sentiment from late 23, cautious tech optimism, tokenomics concerns. Did the more recent April 25 sources give any hints about how sentiment might have evolved?
It's more indirect, but we can infer a bit. The fact that Aptos led in those big token unlocks in April 25 would have definitely sparked community discussion, likely revisiting those earlier concerns.
Yeah, unlocks always get people talking.
But the counterpoint is that reported doubling of TVL year over year. If true, that suggests, despite the unlocks, more people were actively using and trusting the ecosystem with their assets. That usually helps sentiment.
Growing usage in the face of potential sell pressure.
Okay. Plus, the integration protocols like USDD and PassET, the news about shardinges hitting scalability milestones, the hash palette acquisition for Japan. These are generally things the community sees positively. Signs of progress, expansion, technological advancement.
Right, positive developments can outweigh tokenomics worries for some.
Potentially. So while we don't have that direct Reddit snapshot from April 25 in our sources, the news flow suggests a community likely observing real growth and development, even if the tokenomics discussion continues in the background.
Okay, a nuanced picture. So let's try to wrap this all up, synthesizing everything we've discussed.
Yeah.
What are the main takeaways from this deep dive into Aptos?
I'd say fundamentally, Aptos is a relatively new layer 1 player with undeniably strong technical roots, especially that Move language focused on security.
And the meta background driving that initial push.
Right. It has an innovative architecture aiming for very high scalability, backed by significant VC funding. And its ecosystem is growing, attracting users and developers across different areas like DeFi and gaming. But the tokenomics remain a key point of contention. That initial allocation, the large chunk for insiders, the unlocked schedules, these raise concerns, particularly highlighted in that Reddit discussion about potential future sell pressure and alignment with retail investors.
So strong tech, strong backing, growing ecosystem, but with persistent questions around the token distribution and unlocks.
That sums it up pretty well.
Okay, so for you, our listener, hopefully you now have a much clearer, more rounded picture of Aptos, drawn from different angles, community chat, expert analysis, official docs. It should give you a better foundation for your own ongoing research. What might be some good follow-up questions to explore next?
That's a good thought.
Yeah.
You could definitely dig into how the market actually reacted to those big April 2025 unlocks. Did the price dip? Did it recover? How did volume change?
Yeah, see how the theory played out in reality.
Exactly. Also, keep tracking the ecosystem growth metrics. Are daily active users still climbing? Is TVL continuing to rise? What new major applications are launching? That tells you about real adoption.
Good point. What else?
And maybe compare Move adoption versus other smart contract languages like Solidity or Rust on other chains. Is Move gaining traction? Are developers finding it easier or safer to build with? That's crucial for long-term success.
Excellent avenues for further digging. Okay, and to leave everyone with a final thought to chew on. Given Aptos' clear technological ambitions advantages, particularly around Move and scalability, and weighing those against the valid concerns raised about its tokenomics and VC influence, what do you think will ultimately be the deciding factor? What will truly shape its long-term success and where it eventually lands in the whole Web3 picture?
That's the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it?
Indeed it is. Something to ponder as you continue watching this space. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Aptos.